Hey, everybody, welcome. My name is Matt Johnston, also known as Matt the Lawyer. We're doing something a little bit different today. We're going to do a little bit of dialogue with my friend Teresa, who has experienced something that I think a lot of small business owners are starting to experience. So before we get started, I got to do that lawyers and disclaimer thing. This podcast or video is intended for educational, informational purposes only. We may be talking about a situation similar to yours, but this is not legal advice. You shouldn't consider it that it's legal advice. The facts and circumstances of your particular situation may call for different legal advice than what I am talking about. And if you need confidential legal advice, you should consult a competent attorney. So there we go. All right. So with me today is Teresa. She is the owner of a local business. Teresa is not a client, at least maybe not yet. Who knows? Um, but through various interactions with Teresa, I've learned that she has faced a situation that I think a lot of small business owners are facing, which is the chargeback or credit card chargebacks. These credit card chargebacks have become, I don't want to say prevalent, but they are certainly more common than they used to. And essentially, what it boils down to is somebody will purchase services from a business, and then sometime, usually 45, 60 days later, they'll charge back through their credit card processing, dispute resolution processing through the credit card company. And then all mayhem ensues for the small business owner. And the unfortunate thing is, as Teresa's going to explain, sometimes it's the small business owner that gets screwed. So we're going to talk about Teresa's experience, and then we're going to talk about some of the things that she and I have discovered and how that goes. So, Teresa, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Matt. Well, just to give everyone a quick overview of the basics of what my experience was and a little bit about my business. So, we have a membership model business where we have customers who participate in that membership model and participate in a variety of events for both learning purposes as well as entertainment or just social gathering. Along with that, we also do some travel experiences and do have the opportunity to purchase products, but for the most part, our business is very service oriented. And so with that, we do, have that subscription model, which does require use of a website or platform that processes subscriptions. And in our situation, we found that PayPal was a great solution for us. The fees were a little less than processing from our website provider and then leveraging some of the other payment platforms to then move the subscription and tracking to, another tool. So for us, PayPal was a great option. It offers subscription services as well as the ability for our customers to easily log into their accounts and perform transactions. And for us, we felt that we would have that buyer protection and seller protection and allow our customers just to have that peace of mind surrounding their accounts, especially because most of our products are very service oriented and they're not actually receiving a physical item. So in our situation, we had a member who decided that they no longer wanted to participate in services for a variety of reasons. A big part of that was a very personal feeling of maybe being left out because, as many of you know, as you begin to engage with other people, you tend to build relationships, and those might not always include everyone. Our company, we do include everyone, and unfortunately, sometimes it can be very hard for someone to separate personal feelings from very professional feelings. So in this case, this member felt very inclined to, say that, hey, I no longer want to participate in anything, and decided to go ahead and initiate a series of disputes. Those were both surrounding their membership, but also some of the events that we had scheduled with them to travel. And so this is where the biggest issue came in for us, is that when this member dispute, when they canceled and we initiated a refund, there was money owed to us for an incentive that was received. So we were very clear in our documentation surrounding the expectation that the customer returned those funds to us, or we would deduct that from the refund. In this case, before that deadline hit, about 2 hours before the deadline, we provided the customer, this individual filed a dispute through PayPal. And so just what happens, if any of you have ever experienced that, is PayPal notifies you of the dispute, and they give you a series of items that they want you to provide. And those both can be an answer to the dispute, but it could also be a series of other items depending on the situation. So in our circumstance, at first, I was asked to just answer the dispute. It was for several $1,000s. So to put that in perspective, because we're running a membership model, the membership is not a significant amount. And so having thousands of dollars immediately frozen while waiting for a dispute to be resolved can be very, cumbersome. But it was something that at that point, was not that big of a deal just yet. So we went ahead and answered this dispute, provided all of the documentation, all of the communication we'd had with the customer. And then PayPal came back and asked us for a series of other documents, including things that we had already provided. So a copy of our business license, a copy of transactional receipts from our vendors, which again, I'll repeat, we actually offer services. So we typically don't actually have vendors unless it's someone from an event that we've gone to. We were asked to justify several of the subscriptions that we have. So again, our members are logging into their PayPal account and actually subscribing through PayPal. But we were asked to provide evidence of these subscriptions, which, of course, we just send out a copy of the receipt. But again, just things that PayPal already has on file because they have that history of their customer logging in. So from there, this really just continued to escalate, just a really negative situation. So this customer began to just dispute every single membership month for over 2 years that they have been partnering with us or working with us as a customer. They also disputed trips that they had attended with us in the past. So every single time a new dispute was filed, and then each time we won the dispute, because we, of course, do provide the services, we do track communication, we do track, we have photographs of everything. PayPal would again then immediately freeze our funds again until the next dispute was processed. And the typical turnaround can be anywhere from 2 weeks to, in some cases, 60 days. They say 45, but it's usually about 60. And so over the course of the past 6 months, this customer has filed countless disputes, every single thing that they've attended or participated in. And so each time that happens, thinking about just a financial impact, our money that is in PayPal is immediately frozen. We can't touch those funds. We, again, do travel. So a lot of our customer funds for trips are in that account. And again, many of you are probably the first thing thinking, hey, why didn't you transfer that out to your bank? And trust me, I thought of that as well. But PayPal has some great incentives for businesses, right? You get cash back on travel. You get so many things that were very appealing. But what I'm finding now is it's really just almost a form of corporate theft to a degree. So we literally have funds that we can't touch because of this. And we should be protected under the seller protection policies that PayPal discloses in the terms and conditions. None of that has been what I've experienced despite continually winning these disputes and having proof. I'm finding that I'm just continually being asked for the same information, the same documentation. The consumer has lost several of the disputes, and they just turn around and dispute it directly through their credit card company the next time. And then they come back and dispute it again through PayPal. So it's just become this endless cycle of answering disputes, but the entire time still suffering a financial loss because as those funds are held, we still have to perform our day-to-day functions as a business. So it's definitely taken a huge toll. So that is the quick and dirty version of the information about the situation for us. And then I think we're going to talk a little bit about some of that impact, but I'll ask you if you have
Sure.
any questions, Matt, or anything else you
Yeah,
want me to
so let
discuss.
me ask you, so let's get clarification. When you say PayPal freezes your funds, let's just do a hypothetical. Let's say the dispute is for $500. Do they hold $500 or do they hold everything?
Sure. So there's two situations, right? So what we experienced, so just the amount of the dispute was held initially. Okay. So when I answered the dispute, then I was asked for more information. And at that moment, they did not just say, please provide additional details about the dispute. They did say that, but it also said, your account is limited. There is a hold on your funds. In order to access them, you need to provide the following. And so in a separate area, then the dispute resolution center, there's an account limitation center. And in that section, I was then asked to provide, again, that business license, vendor transactions, proof of the different, transactions through our account. And what I found was that it just seemed to be a pattern, right? So the dispute comes in from this customer. And mind you, in 2 years, we've never had a dispute from any other individual or any other transactions. These are the only disputes we've ever had. So when you're thinking about risk patterns that should be being watched, that should have been identified that this seems to be the same individual, same complaint. They're providing
Yeah.
the same proof, but instead they continue to put an account limit on my account in addition to the hold for funds as part of the dispute.
So you're not able to access at least all minus the disputed funds. You're limited on what you can transfer in and out or pay other vendors or refunds or whatever. All of that is limited.
Yeah, so the account limit prevents you from performing any outgoing transaction. You can still receive funds. So we were able to still process our subscription. And through my naivety, I felt like, hey, I know I'm in the right. This dispute is going to clear up. And so we can continue to process our subscriptions. It'll open back up. But here we are more than 6 months later, and I'm still getting asked for, proof of every transaction, even though I can't perform transactions. So that account limitation does prevent you from, I can't pay a vendor, I can't issue money to a customer unless it's as a direct result of an equal dollar amount transaction, and only from a specific window of time. So it's it's a lose-lose situation for me overall. So the dispute is limited to the amount of the dispute, but that account limitation is a separate topic that they, ask for just an incredible amount of things. It's been a crazy, crazy process.
So when you were telling me about this, and because I have other clients who use PayPal for various things, maybe not all of, for the most part, you ran your business through financially through PayPal. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes, the financial transactions for, because again, being a membership model, the
Yeah.
subscription model is our primary constant, I'll say. And then we
Yeah.
do offer those travel and other services. And I think something I forgot to mention as well is that, I also do have a personal account that I do use for other things, including some personal travel items. When PayPal puts that account limitation on, they often, which I experienced, reach out to any other accounts associated with you. So that included myself as well as my business partner. We also received account limitations on our personal PayPal accounts as well. And so that, caused a hindrance for me, for some of the other work that I do, as well as my business partner was unable to process transactions for a
Oh,
period of
wow.
time as well.
We hadn't talked about that. I didn't know that they reached out to and put stuff on
Yeah,
your personal accounts.
Yep. So
Wow.
on my personal account, it just says, your account is limited. Basically the same error message, but it'll
Yeah.
say, we need you to resolve your issue with the following other account, and then it listed my other
Yeah.
business account. Mhm.
Wow. Okay. That's a tad draconian, but we're going to leave that aside for a second because, like, after you and I were talking about this and some other the things that come up, I went and pulled PayPal's merchant account terms of service. And I was very interested to see what, if anything, they describe about dispute resolution or anything like that. And I was fairly floored by the lack of detail. Now, I'm not, you know, in my world, when you go into court, there are rules of evidence. There's rules of procedure, and everybody knows what the rules are. Whether they follow the rules or not is a whole different problem, but the rules are there. Judges are there to enforce it. But what I found in these dispute resolution, both with PayPal and with other vendors, that is a real murky area. I think you've been lucky to a certain extent because you've mostly won your disputes. It may have taken time, but you mostly won those, right?
Yeah, for the most part, we currently do still have three which have not been fully, I guess, reviewed by PayPal. But for the most part, we won. And I think that has really only gone to the just the fact that in each, as I began to deal with this, I just realized the importance of being able to tie back a communication to a transaction. And I would say to anyone using any payment processing service, as you're talking to customers, because I had no idea how far this would go. I think I was very lucky because I had begun to communicate in a very strategic way of speaking about a transaction and a transaction number, and just referring back to that continually. And I think that that helped me. But trust me, before this circumstance, I would have never done that. And I think you and I know that that's just not the way that you typically communicate with people. You try to provide the best service you can in a very customer service friendly way. I think that that helped me. And just the fact that the model we have is so social media friendly that we're always taking pictures. And that probably helped me a lot. If I didn't have that, though, I don't think I would have won some of those disputes.
Yeah, from so typically when I get involved in this, it's well after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still kind of early in the process, but usually when I get involved is when the dispute resolution has done its thing and PayPal appears to be somewhat responsive and being, and maybe not merchant friendly, but not merchant adverse. A lot of credit card companies are very, very customer friendly. And I've had I had one client who there was a dispute, and the credit card company literally reached into my client's bank account and pulled
Mm-hmm.
out the money from the dispute. And we're talking thousands of dollars in this particular case. And he was fortunate enough to have a line of credit on standby so that he could pay his staff because he was using that money from the customer. He was going to use that to pay his staff.
Right.
Fortunately, he had that standby line of credit. So when I talk about, and you mentioned it, sort of this corporate aided theft, essentially when the credit card companies side with a customer in these service situations, um, it's punitive. It's almost immediate, and the customer has gotten what they paid for. In the case that I was talking about, customer got the services. In fact, got more than what was bargained for in the contract because of good customer service, principles and stuff like that by my client. But then they turn around and they dispute it because they can, is essentially what it boils down to. So,
Yeah.
um,
And I think I'm dealing with a perfect example of that right now. The most recent dispute from the same customer that we received, we had one through PayPal. They filed a second dispute directly through their, I'm going to say, credit card company. I'm assuming because it was not initiated right at the PayPal side. We won that one as well. And then originally we had been using a different platform, 2 years ago for transactions, and they went back and filed another dispute through the original provider. So this is the person that originally processed the payment, then it went over to PayPal, and so they filed a dispute there, and I'm dealing with that one now. And that transaction is it's more than a year and a half old. It was from January 2024. So it's, to your point, it's like, at what point does the company say, this is not, if they've won twice, they've supplied evidence, at what point do you still stop allowing these to process through? And it's not only the financial challenge that it creates for small business owners, it's the time consumption of answering these. You have to answer each and every one. You have to be thorough. And each time it's a different set of questions. It's a different set of documents that you're needing to provide. And I think that when you add all of that together, the cost to us is very significant. And it also can create a lack of, something you mentioned about your client. What if he couldn't pay his employees because he didn't have that line of credit? In our circumstance, we did not.
yeah,
That then hurts the integrity of that company. It hurts the trust for the employees. He could have lost people. So it definitely takes a
yeah.
significant toll. And I think it's a really serious matter. And the protections from these payment processors, they're providing us with a service. We pay them for that service. And really, we should be able to be protected to a degree, within reason, of course. I mean,
I mean, look, disputes happen occasionally and
mhm.
they're legitimate. I'm not saying that they're not, but what seems to be the pattern that I'm seeing is that, and it typically involves certain credit card companies who are very customer friendly. And so their card holders will lodge something, there'll be a response. It's like, here's the contract, here's what we did, here's the proof of what we did, here's our communications, and then that will be it. The credit card company is going to side with the customer card holder, and then and effectively it's theft of service.
Yeah.
And we end up in lawsuits because of this. And the weird thing is it's not big numbers, but it's sometimes like the case that I was dealing with, it's just over the limit for where a business can represent themselves in court.
Yeah.
So they had to hire me. I mean, I was already their lawyer for other purposes, but they had to hire me, and the cost of defending the suit is more than anything else. Or actually, the way it turned out is they ended up suing the customer for basically, you stole from us. And we ended up settling this dispute, but my client didn't get the amount of money that was he was supposed to get for the services that he rendered. So we sort of talked about it, but what's your estimate of the amount of time that it takes you to do? Well, you spent a lot of time on this one customer, so give me an idea of how much time we're talking about.
Yeah, so I mean, if looking back at the very first dispute that was filed, it was very cut and dry. I had, the emails that I needed to have. It was related to a piece of travel, so that was a very, quick and easy one. But as this continued to escalate, when we start talking about someone disputing a membership charge for 1 month and saying I didn't get the services that I provided, that's where my time really started to mount up. So I'm having to look back for, hey, did this person communicate with me during that month in any way, including a photograph maybe from one of our other members? That I mean, just searching for some of that was so time consuming. So I'm going to say that I'm at least 80 to 100 hours worth of time. And this is not just the disputes, right? This is having to show proof each time that PayPal placed that account limitation. And I'm pulling these documents and I'm having to find recent transaction history for other transactions. It's been other things that this person has communicated, because I think the fear and some business owners may not experience this, but because we are a very membership service model, it's important to me that someone can't take that screenshot of an email and say, hey, she never responded to this. So on top of that, I felt very obligated to respond to each communication within reason while it was still safe to do so. And so when you add all of that time together of just trying to be very present, trying to be on top of each communication, responding in a timely manner to, every request from PayPal that's coming through, as well as, the credit card disputes and just everything, it definitely is well over 100 hours.
Um,
And I will add also, sorry about that, but just have, there's also time and reputational damage when I'm then also needing to communicate to my other customers and say, you may experience a delay in this because, I didn't realize how long PayPal was going to hold some of our funds, right? So when I'm first reaching out to people and saying, hey, this is going to take a week, and then here that week has passed, and now I need to reach out to PayPal to figure out what's going on or have to reach back out to my customers, there's damage that's done there. And there's a cost to the time that it takes for me to respond to all of those customers. There's a more importantly to me, we pride ourselves on our openness and just being very clear communicators about everything going on, and having to really risk that reputational damage has also had a serious toll on, I guess, the peace of mind I have in our business and the joy that our business brings me. So I think that there's a definite cost there as well.
so one of the things that I often end up working with clients who end up coming to me for dispute resolution, whether it's in the courts or mediation or something like that, we often end up doing after the fact a lot of sort of cleaning up. And one of the things that we talk about is cleaning up for like cleaning up refund policies,
Mhm.
and then changing terms in a client customer contract that says if I have to come to you to get the money that you owe me, you're going to pay my attorney's fees too. Because the client that I had that we ended up in court with, he didn't have that in his contract. So he's paying for my time out of pocket and not get, he didn't even, it ended up being pretty close to a wash. But, at the end of the day, he lost money on this thing. So, um, I'm just wondering, have you made any changes in your refund policies or how you deal with disputes within the business?
Absolutely. So we did immediately make a change to number one, our terms and conditions. So when the first set of disputes came in, we initiated a series of just kind of damage control a little bit. So just making sure that our customers were very clear about the services that we were offering. So we, began to make announcements during some of our events. We did some printed terms and conditions just for clarity at that moment, just to, really make sure that any verbal communication that might be happening did not create basically a snowball effect with anything else going on. So that was an immediate change. So that was really just a placeholder to give us a little bit of time to make some modifications to the way that our terms and conditions, number one, are agreed to. So we now, in our new website, which we're actually relaunching due to many of these things that have happened, we have clarified just what our refund policies are. We've clarified the different levels of service that you receive with your membership versus other paid items. We also, in this experience, found that this consumer refused to participate in arbitration. So we came to the table with, a very, I feel, generous offer to go ahead and pay for that arbitration 100% out of pocket. And it was through another provider. So it was a reasonable cost, I'll add. But this person, refused arbitration and just, I think, that wanted to continue to file disputes, unfortunately. So we did add that is the required method for any dispute resolution is mediation.
You made it
And
mandatory?
we did not say it's mandatory. We said in order for us to participate. So either you'll
Yeah.
follow our refund policies and our terms and conditions. If you would like to escalate, you agree to go through with mediation as our first option, and that any further things are at the cost of the customer. So that's been added. We also added just clarity on how to cancel, so making that process, easier. Our process has always been you can hit cancel in the PayPal subscription window, or you could send us an email. But in the new website, it's just right there, a quick and easy link to click to make that process just very clear. And then we also have some terms and conditions now surrounding some of the things that are allowed to be, posted publicly. So, one big thing I think that is important is we strive not to humiliate anyone or to make anyone feel unwelcome. And so it's important that our members do the same thing and really just continue to be positive voices for the rest of the group. So we've added some social media and communication terms and conditions. And then the biggest, lesson learned for me was just also the tracking. So as I said, some of the things that I needed to go find documentation for did take me some time. And a lot of that was because so much of the communication has been by text or email. And that's because we do have just like that really friendly, laid back policy. We want to be there and communicate well. But now anytime someone contacts me by text for something that has to do with the business, my response is not usually going to be by text. It's always going to either be by email or followed up with a summary email as well. And then, like I said, just beginning to include transaction numbers inside of those communications when they have to do with the transaction. And that's just more for the purpose of being able to track that for if I ever did have to go back and get those details. We've also changed some of our policies surrounding like picking up goods or services, so we no longer have, a model where you can kind of just take things in a more laid back way. So without getting into detail, there's some perks that come with some of our membership. And so our model in the past was that we're going to, hand you a voucher, you exchange that for something, but we weren't actually tracking it as a receipt or transaction. And so now we've changed that model as well. So definitely a lot of lessons learned, which, as as you grow, you should always be taking these challenges and these things that happen and turning them into a lesson learned, and that's just going to help you as a business owner. It's definitely helped me. But I think that, another lesson learned for me is don't hang all of your eggs in a single basket. And I did that with PayPal, unfortunately. And we've changed that as well.
Yeah, one of the things that when business owners are facing this problem, the problems that you're facing with chargebacks and all this other stuff, is there's often these sorts of assumptions that are left unchallenged. The assumption is PayPal, it's so easy that, or look, this credit card company they don't charge as much for processing and things like that. So all of these things become these sort of unstated assumptions, and there's always a cost on the back end. And most people don't really think about that. And to be frank, nor should they. But when you start thinking about, the hundreds of hours that you've put in on one customer, granted, this particular customer is a bit of a nightmare. Um, but not having these processes in place and not thinking about, okay, if you have a dispute resolution process, if you are purchasing these services, you are agreeing to this dispute resolution process.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I think is kind of interesting, and we haven't really figured out because I haven't put as much thought into it, but one of the things that I'm thinking about is how do we address the fact that the credit card dispute resolution process is outside of the contractual relationship between the business and the customer. Um, for example, if you have a contract that says we're going to do mandatory arbitration for some body, if you file a claim in court, the court can dismiss that case until you go through the arbitration.
Mm-hmm.
But a credit card company isn't going to do that. So you
Right.
have this system of private, opaque, not quite clear dispute resolution processes that you're unsure what the rules are. You're unsure about what the rules of evidence are. So going back to being clear, even in an arbitration, most arbitration services have a set of rules. These are the rules by which we're going to do things, and everybody has to abide by the rules. And so that's one of the things that I think is really hard um, when when you're dealing with this sort of thing. Is you've got this third party involved in the dispute resolution between you and the customer now, and it's not clear. Um, and I think that's one of the struggles. It's clearly one of the struggles that you've had. But I think it's also one of the struggles that other businesses are going to be facing is like, we can put into place these policies, but if somebody disputes that credit card charge, you can't really, it's very hard to say to the credit card. It's like, well, okay, I hear what you're saying, but they said that they were going to do this, and I don't know what a
Mm-hmm.
credit card company is going to do about that. I know
Yeah,
what a
I,
court
I
would
will
do.
say that we did one of our disputes through PayPal was one because I had literally listed what our refund and cancel policy was very clearly in both. I provided them with a copy of our terms and conditions, but in the follow-up email, I also had spoke to that and referred back to it. And that actually did win one of our disputes for us, was that this customer was
Okay.
not able. But with that being said, when they then followed up and disputed again through the credit card company, that was a different scenario. They were not looking for that and or considering it. We won that purely just out of being able to provide evidence that this customer did receive
Yeah.
the service. So to your point, it does vary, and how would we know as consumers or business owners which way they're going to go?
Yeah. I think that, I mean, I've started to advise my clients when they face this, you send everything. It may slow down the process, but send everything. Communications, emails, call logs, the products or services or pictures of or proof of things, and any contract that's associated with it. So you have a business model where there is a contract, there's a terms of service that people are signing. And one of those terms of service is now there's this mediation and arbitration provision. How how the credit card companies are going to address that going forward, I don't know. Um, Hopefully they'll sort of take that on board and recognize. Um, there's occasionally when I get really wide-eyed and really, really angry It's like we should just sue these. I can find a whole bunch of people who've had this problem and just sue the credit card company. But they've got whole platoons of lawyers to get out of these sorts of things. But um, I think there have been times where you have wanted to, sue PayPal for these sorts of things. So one of the big lessons from a legal perspective is, and it's a lesson that you've learned and the hard way, is think about what happens if things go wrong. A lot of times, a lot of businesses get involved and they build a business and they haven't really thought about what could go wrong. Um, and if you're a business that relies upon credit card transactions, you need to think about what's going to go wrong. Um, it's very rare that you're going to get a dispute for, $10, trip to Starbucks or something like that. But, your membership model is not thousands of dollars per transaction. It's a little bit smaller. And um, and so a dispute on that small amount rapidly outpaces the value that you're getting out of it. Um, but if you're dealing with larger sums, I'm now counseling employers to think about, not employers, counseling business owners to think about, okay, what happens if there's a dispute and how do we avoid this problem where you're spending hundreds of hours dealing with something? And it's not, sorry, it's not simple and it really sort of sucks. Um, I think you told me that you've moved all of your financing and stuff like that, but you also told me there was a period of time where you were financing things out of pocket.
Yeah,
So,
so we still have funds that are held in PayPal right now. So in the interim, though, we need to continue our business, and we had to say, and again, just to be clear, there, I did not know how long this was going to take. So my immediately thought was not, because I couldn't pull my funds that were already in PayPal, but my immediate thought also wasn't like stop processing subscriptions through PayPal. I thought that this would be resolved in a timely manner. I knew that we were on the right side of things. And so as it continued to go on, though, just realizing that this can easily come up again, right? Like it could happen at any moment. We did close down our site just so that we could take a moment and move our subscription provider, and then also create a level of separation between that new subscription provider and our actual day-to-day finances. So, just making sure that, after a subscription or a payment comes through, you are moving that out of that subscription provider, still leaving funds to transact and issue refunds or do what you need to
yeah,
do, but create a level of separation because unfortunately, if something like this did come up again, we don't want to end up in the same position. That would be irresponsible on our part. So that but in order for us to continue our day to day and still provide the service that we needed to provide to the rest of our customers, we did have to choose to pay things out of pocket. I mentioned that we do some travel, so we had some travel payments that had already been paid, and we had a trip that was already planned, and we needed to pay those balances right to the hotel and other things. So that did have to come out of pocket because those funds were are still on hold with PayPal right now.
yeah. All right. So for the folks out there who are watching this, the number one thing that I want to take away from Teresa's experience is that even an isolated incident can have second and third, fourth order effects of time, of money, of processing. You have to spend some time redoing how you were doing your business processes. And um, hindsight is always 2020. We can always say, oh, well, we should have done this, we should have done that. Um, thing that I would tell Teresa, I don't know if I actually have told you this, but I would tell you this now and everybody else out there. We make decisions at a time when we make those decisions with imperfect information.
Mhm.
And it's okay to regret not having done something, but you can't let that regret just grind on you. So it's better to say, okay, we messed up there, or we didn't think of this, and we're going to fix this going forward. So what Teresa did, I think what you did was great. I'm sorry that it had to be the way that it happened, but yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. Um, we can always try and resolve problems that have already happened. Because hopefully it doesn't cost as much money and we don't end up in a situation where you have to go to court.
Right.
Okay. So
And Matt,
anything
I'll
else you
say
want to
this
close with?
I want to just also say this as a small business owner to other small business owners. Another lesson, take the personal out of it. I mean, the truth is I started this out of something that I love to do. I love every moment. I love the people that I interact with. I love our customers. I love the people we work with. And so when some of this came up, right, I didn't immediately leap into action because I was looking at it from that very personal lens and saying, this isn't going to go this far. And so the recommendation that I would make to any business owner watching this is take the personal out of it. Make sure that as you take lessons from this conversation or others, you prepare your terms and conditions, you set up your documentation in a way that considers that, hey, you are running a business and you need to protect that for the long term. And no matter who your customer is, whether it's your sister, mother, brother, or best friend, anything can happen. And I would just keep that in mind, like, stay personal, keep doing your labor of love, but take the personal out when you think about protecting yourself and your business.
Yeah. It's hard. Not taking it personal, particularly for small business owners, it's hard. Because it is often a labor of love and it's often this is how I pay my bills. This is how I, put food on the table and things like that. And when somebody attacks you sort of the way these things come up, it's hard to not take it personal. Um, so yeah, that's a good point. Thanks. All right. So big thank you to Teresa for coming on board. You are the first of what may be many of these things. So
Ooh.
congratulations.
Well, hopefully next time we're
Um,
talking, it's about great successes and
yes.
wonderful things that we can help
Yeah.
with. So,
Yeah. Unfortunately, most people come to a lawyer because there's a problem. So there we go. That's just the nature of my business. But anyway, so before we close up, this podcast and video is a production of the Johnston Business Law Group. It's going to be distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution and No Derivatives license, all rights reserved. Thank you. Thank you so much, Teresa, for coming on board. I really appreciate it.
of course, thank you and
All right.
have a great evening.
Everybody, have a good time. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.